For centuries, humanity has looked toward the heavens and asked a simple question. Are we alone? We built telescopes powerful enough to peer into distant galaxies. We launched probes beyond the edge of our solar system. We searched the stars for signals from civilizations we have never met. And throughout that search, one assumption has remained unquestioned. That before the dawn of the space age, Earth's skies belonged to us alone. That before Sputnik, nothing artificial orbited our planet. But what if that assumption is wrong? What if the evidence has been hiding in plain sight for more than 70 years? Buried inside forgotten astronomical archives? Preserved on photographic plates? Ignored by history? Tonight, we explore one of the strangest scientific mysteries of the modern era. A mystery involving more than 100,000 unexplained objects recorded in Earth's orbital environment before humanity launched its first satellite. A mystery that forces us to ask an unsettling question. Was something already here before we reached space? This is the Unknown Frontier Media. Exploring the edge of reality. For decades, the search for extraterrestrial life has focused on distant planets, radio telescopes, and the vast emptiness of space. But what if evidence of something unexplained has been sitting much closer to home? What if mysterious objects were already orbiting Earth years before humanity launched its first satellite? This is the remarkable story of astrophysicist Dr. Beatrice Villarroel and a discovery that challenges one of our most fundamental assumptions about space history. The year was 1957 when the Soviet Union launched Sputnik, the first artificial satellite in human history. According to the conventional timeline, before Sputnik there were no human-made objects orbiting Earth. But a growing body of research suggests that something unusual may have been sharing our skies long before the space age began. Dr. Beatrice Villarroel, an astrophysicist at Stockholm University and recipient of the prestigious L'Oreal UNESCO Award for Women in Science, was examining archived astronomical photographs from the Palomar Observatory in California. These photographs were not ordinary pictures. They were scientific survey plates created during the 1950s to map the night sky. As Villarroel analyzed thousands of these historical images, she noticed something unexpected. Thousands of brief flashes of light appeared on the photographic plates. Not streaks. Not stars. Not meteors. Short-lived points of light that appeared and vanished within minutes. At first, many astronomers assumed these were simply defects in the photographic emulsion. After all, old photographic plates often contain scratches, dust particles, bubbles, and chemical imperfections. But Villarroel and her team decided to investigate further. The result was astonishing. Their analysis identified more than 100,000 transient objects recorded in the skies during the 1950s. What made these observations particularly unusual was their appearance. The transients were not long streaks like meteors crossing the sky. They appeared as brief, concentrated flashes of light. According to the researchers, many resembled the type of reflection produced when sunlight strikes a perfectly flat mirror. This distinction is important. Natural objects such as meteoroids typically produce trails or continuous motion across photographic exposures. These transients behaved differently. They appeared suddenly, shone brightly for a brief moment, and then disappeared. The patterns suggested highly reflective surfaces rather than ordinary astronomical phenomena. If these flashes represented real objects, they may have been reflecting sunlight in much the same way modern satellites occasionally produce satellite flares. The difference, of course, is that these observations occurred years before humanity placed any known satellites into orbit. Even more surprising, these objects appeared before the launch of any human satellite. The question became impossible to ignore. What exactly were they seeing? To determine whether these flashes represented real objects or photographic errors, researchers examined their distribution across the sky. They focused on a crucial factor, Earth's shadow. When sunlight strikes a reflective object in orbit, it can create a bright flash visible from Earth. However, objects located inside Earth's shadow cannot produce such reflections because they are not illuminated by the sun. If the flashes were random defects on photographic plates, they would appear equally everywhere. But if they represented actual reflective objects in space, fewer should appear inside Earth's shadow. The results were striking. Researchers found approximately 30 to 35% fewer flashes within Earth's shadow than outside it. This suggested that many of the observed transients were not defects at all. They appeared consistent with sunlight reflecting off real physical objects orbiting Earth. The shadow analysis revealed another intriguing clue. By examining where the flashes appeared relative to Earth's shadow, researchers were able to estimate the possible altitude of some of these objects. Their calculations suggested that many may have been located at distances approaching geosynchronous orbit. That is roughly 42,000 kilometers from Earth. At that altitude, an object circles the planet at the same rate Earth rotates, appearing nearly stationary from the ground. Yet these observations were recorded years before the launch of Sputnik. If true, this would mean that thousands of unidentified objects were present in near-Earth space before the beginning of the space age. The question remained: who put them there? The mystery deepened further. Working independently, physicist Dr. Stephen Brawl examined the timing of these transients and compared them with historical records of nuclear weapons testing. What he found was unexpected. On days following nuclear detonations, the likelihood of observing transient objects increased dramatically. According to the analysis, transient activity was approximately 68% more likely following a nuclear test than during normal periods. The correlation was statistically significant. Yet the data contains another mystery. The apparent relationship between nuclear testing and transient activity did not continue indefinitely. Researchers found that after approximately 1956, the correlation largely disappeared. This is particularly puzzling because nuclear weapons testing did not stop. In fact, testing activity increased significantly during the years that followed. Why the correlation vanished remains unknown. The story becomes even more intriguing when viewed through the lens of one of the most famous UFO events in American history. During July of 1952, Washington, D.C. experienced a wave of unexplained aerial sightings that generated radar contacts, military investigations, and widespread media attention. Multiple unidentified objects were reported over the nation's capital. Fighter aircraft were scrambled. Radar operators tracked unknown targets. The events became one of the most discussed UFO cases ever recorded. Remarkably, Villarroel's team identified some of the most significant transient events during this same period. On July 19, 1952, astronomical plates recorded 3 bright transient objects. Just 8 days later, on July 27, another observation captured 5 aligned transient objects. These dates coincide closely with the peak of the Washington UFO wave. Correlation does not prove causation. But the timing is difficult to ignore. The possibility of unknown objects orbiting Earth before Sputnik is not entirely new. In fact, similar claims surfaced years before Villarroel's research began. In 1953, Major Donald Keyhoe publicly stated that the United States Air Force was tracking 2 unidentified objects orbiting Earth. This was 4 years before Sputnik. The claim generated controversy and skepticism. Yet it also attracted the attention of respected scientists including Dr. Lincoln LaPaz and Clyde Tombaugh, the astronomer who discovered Pluto. While none of these early investigations produced definitive proof, they reveal a remarkable fact. Long before the space age officially began, credible observers were already asking whether unknown objects might be orbiting Earth. As researchers continued exploring historical archives, they uncovered another curious detail. During the 1950s, large numbers of astronomical photographic plates and observational records were reportedly destroyed or discarded. Regardless of the reason, the loss of these records has made independent verification significantly more difficult. Another intriguing aspect of the research involves so-called uncorrelated targets. For decades, military space surveillance systems have detected objects that appear briefly and then disappear, making them difficult to classify as satellites or known debris. Some researchers now wonder whether the mysterious transients observed on the 1950s photographic plates represent an early version of the same phenomenon. Could these unidentified objects still be present today? The answer remains unknown. The scientific community remains divided. Many astronomers remain skeptical and argue that additional testing and independent replication are essential. Others believe the statistical evidence is compelling enough to justify serious investigation. What makes the research significant is not that it proves extraterrestrial visitation. It doesn't. Instead, it presents a genuine scientific mystery supported by historical data. Thousands of unexplained flashes were recorded. Many appear consistent with reflective objects in orbit. Some correlate with nuclear testing activity. And all of this occurred before humanity launched its first spacecraft. The implications are profound. If these objects were real, who, or what, put them there? Were they natural phenomena? Unknown human technology? Secret military experiments? Or something entirely beyond our current understanding? For now, no definitive answer exists. What is clear is that Dr. Villarroel's work has reopened a forgotten chapter of astronomical history and challenged assumptions that have stood for generations. As more historical archives are digitized and new analyses emerge, we may finally learn whether these mysterious flashes were merely overlooked anomalies, or evidence that humanity was being watched long before we ever reached space ourselves. Until then, the mystery remains unsolved. And perhaps, somewhere in the darkness above our world, the answer is still waiting to be discovered. History tells us that the space age began on October 4, 1957. But history is only as complete as the evidence we possess. And sometimes, the evidence raises more questions than answers. More than 100,000 unexplained transients. Objects apparently reflecting sunlight from orbit before humanity launched a single satellite. Statistical links to nuclear testing. Connections to forgotten investigations. And mysteries that remain unresolved decades later. Perhaps future research will reveal an entirely ordinary explanation. Or perhaps these forgotten photographs contain clues to something we have yet to understand. Whatever the truth may be, the search continues. Because every great discovery begins with a question. And some questions refuse to disappear. If you enjoyed this investigation, subscribe to the Unknown Frontier Media and join us as we explore the mysteries that exist at the boundaries of science, history, technology, and the unknown. Leave your thoughts in the comments below. What do you think these objects were? Until next time. Stay curious. Stay skeptical. And keep looking beyond the horizon. This is the Unknown Frontier Media. Exploring the edge of reality.